Hello, and in this tutorial we're going to take a look at three different web browsers and get acquainted with the anatomy of a web browser. We're going to look at Google. We're looking at Google. We're going to look at Firefox, Google Chrome, and Internet Explorer. And we're going to examine some of the basic anatomies of all those different browsers. Okay, the first thing, we'll start out with a Firefox, and when you load your Firefox, it may look different. And I'm going to show you how to customize browsers, and this is pretty universal among all the browsers. Is in this big blue space up top here. If you right click on this, you can turn things off, right? If you don't want to see the bookmarks and if you don't want to see the navigation bar, which I have no idea why you would want to turn that off, but anyway, to each their own. But you can see how I just turned off different menus and things went away. The menu bar, it just consolidates itself up into this little space at the top. Makes it very uncluttered, makes a very uncluttered interface for browsing web pages. Okay, we're going to talk about the tabs. Tabs is something that's pretty much on all of browsers these days, and when you open the new tabs, you get these different things that pop up down here, which are sites that you go to all the time. I find them to actually be quite annoying, but because they very often, as this one is doing, don't really show you the thumbnails of the page, which isn't very helpful. But nevertheless, sometimes the pages do show the thumbnails, and in that case they are very helpful. Okay, you can open a new tab by clicking the plus button, right? That's how I got there. And you can close a tab by Xing out of it. You can't close your main tab because the main tab is closed to the browser, is attached to the browser window, which is closed by closing the program. Okay, so that's the tab interface. I showed you how to customize your appearance so that you can get rid of some of the junk that sometimes is on your browser, so you can maximize your viewing space. Let's talk a little bit about some of these tools at the top here. The back button. The back button appears when there is a page in the history prior to where you are right now. So there are items in my history, and this, if you click and hold the button, okay, I'm clicking and holding, it shows you that the other page was my Gmail inbox. Okay, but we're not going to go there. The forward button is deactivated at the moment. The forward button will also help you navigate pages. It will help you go forward one page in your history. The forward button tends to be pretty confusing, because that means that you're gonna go back to somewhere that you've already been. Anyway, the forward button tends to be pretty confusing, and I don't think that I've ever used it. This button in particular just relates to a download helper. This is a little add-on application for Firefox. One of the cool things about Firefox and Chrome in particular is that you can download lots of custom things to go in them that enhance the browsing experience. I'm a developer, and there's all sorts of developer tools that you can download and install in your edition of Firefox to customize it to the things that you need to do most often. Okay, there is the address bar is next to these navigation options and the optional component here. All right, this is the address bar. This is a very important concept. You will see the address bar in all web browsers because it shows you where you are right now. Okay, and the HTTPS and the appearance of a closed lock is actually telling me that I'm on a secure version of google.com, and if I hover on the lock, it actually says that this site is verified by Google Inc. Later in the semester, we'll learn what that means. This means that there is a certificate behind this website, and that it has been verified through a third party that the page you are viewing is in fact coming from the company who it claims to be from. And this is important, particularly if you're going to be doing commerce with any website. You want to make sure that you see the HTTPS, because it assures that the company you are dealing with is in fact legitimate. That will, at least their certificate verifies that the domain name is actually the people who are taking your money. Okay, there are some other functions here. There is this star button, which lets you easily bookmark this page. Okay, and if I hit that star button, it has added the page to my bookmarks, which, thanks to minimized browsing, actually doesn't really show all that well. And what it has done is it put the bookmark into a folder called Unsorted Bookmarks in my bookmark place. Okay, so cancel out of that. There is the drop down button here, which just shows all the different websites that you've been to, or in the case of newer browsers, it just shows places that you have visited frequently. So yeah, I mean, you can see basically I use this for my business mostly. So every laptop that I own has tons of connections to the MyTCC portal. So anyway, this shows kind of a quick snapshot of places that you've either been or that you have visited frequently. It used to be that this was a straight out history, but it's not like that anymore. Some of the newer browsers, if you just start typing in letters like www.s, and it might like pre-fill the thing with Sears.com, and you're like, okay, I'm not trying to go to Sears, I'm trying to go to, you know, Sports Authority or whatever. I mean, you might start typing letters and it just fills things in automatically. The address bar has kind of taken on a life of its own in the new with the new browsers. They try to get smart. I think everything, just like the Google search box, tries to get smart, and it will fill things in for you, and half the time it ends up redirecting me to some weird page because I haven't quite figured out all the click options for the Google search, and I invariably end up hitting the wrong thing, and I search for the wrong thing because Google auto-completes. Anyway, one of those lovely features of new technology, the address bar will attempt to auto-complete. Okay, the star here is indicating that it's already been added to bookmarks, and if I want to delete that bookmark, I need to hit the remove bookmark, and then the star being unhighlighted tells me that this web page is not already currently in my bookmarks folder. And the bookmarks folder is kind of silly because I think maybe I'm unique in this case, but I'll bookmark things, and bookmarks are like basically where my pages go to die. Sometimes it seems like that anyway. Like, I'll open it up and I'll have bookmarks from like 12 years ago. I'm like, wow, really? What did I need that page for? But anyway, at the time I thought it was important. So you can edit your bookmarks by adding the bookmarks and then either hitting remove the bookmark, or you can edit your main bookmarks area, which is over on the right hand side of the toolbar. Okay, well, working our way across the toolbar is the next box here, which is the Google search box. And yeah, you can, in Firefox, you can drop down, you can pick all these different searches, like where do you want to search? Yahoo, Bing, Amazon, you can just type it in there. It's up to you. It's up to your own personal preferences whether you use these or not. I actually never use these, and the reason that I do that is because you're not actually searching from Google. You're searching through Firefox, who is in turn passing the information to Google. So those types of searches can be exploited by harmful things that are out there on the internet, and just all the nastiness that's out there. Anyway, if I'm going to search Google, I just pull up Google and search in the main box. Okay, but some people enjoy the ability to be able to just type things in here without going to a website. I tend to be a little bit more paranoid than that. In Firefox, this is the downloads button. When you click this, it'll show the progress of any ongoing downloads you have. It'll also open the dialog box for your downloads and help you locate where the heck they go. Just about every browser these days, when you click the download button, they just go into oblivion somewhere on your computer. It doesn't, not by default. By default, they don't ask you where you want them to go. They just have a place where they put all your downloads, and they just shove them in that folder automatically. It's up to you to know where that folder is. You can go into the preferences though, and you can set your download folder, and then you can set it to prompt you for where every single distinct download goes, and that's usually how I prefer to have mine, is to ask me where do I want this file to go every single time I download a file. Don't just, you know, throw it in some folder on my computer. But anyway, that's what all the browsers do these days by default, is they just schlep them in one big folder and leave it up to you to go find them. By default, right? So you can set your preferences to do something different, and the way you do that is underneath of this one. You would go to the options, and you would go to the options option. Okay, now there are a gajillion things in here, and I'm not going to touch it in Firefox because, you know, then we still have to go through IE and Chrome. So I'm not going to analyze the deep customization of every browser. Just understand that there's a lot of things underneath of this main menu here that we have hidden. Something that I will point out is that if you're ever like in a public library or something, and you're doing research, or even if you're in the TCC computer labs or whatever, you might want to do this new private window. And what that does is open a new window. Okay, and during that time, Firefox by default won't remember any history for the window. So whatever you're doing, you know, if you're checking your email, if you just logged into your MyTCC, you know, you can be more secure knowing that it's not keeping any history, no cookies, no anything is going to be remembered when you are using this browser. And that can be a great thing if you're ever on a public computer. I mean, you know, not that we're doing things that, you know, oh yeah, you know, I just want to keep this private, but the idea is it's not remembering anything. Any of your, you know how like browsers have a tendency to, when you log into a web page, it's like, oh, would you like me to remember this password? And sometimes I swear that the default is to remember the password. I don't know why, but sometimes websites, they, you know, they click that, you know, save password by default, and you have to uncheck it. And that can be a problem, because then if somebody else was to go back to that website, if the computer lab attendant hadn't cleared any of the browser's cache, it would actually log in with your account. So you should probably, if you're ever using a public computer, one that's not yours, is to do the private browsing session, and that will keep your information at least a little bit more secure. Okay, so right, we talked about the address bar, we talked about these various different toolbars. This area inside of here, this big box, is the main content window. Okay, and that's where your page content displays, right down here in this area. Okay, on the new browsers, when you hover on a link, like this is a link, and when I hover on it, I know that it's a link because it turns blue, and you know, it's blue already, but it underlines. And down in the lower right hand corner, I can't actually point there with the mouse, because if I do take it off, it will disappear. I want to show you a very important thing. That address thing down in the corner should become your friend, especially if you're navigating pages that you have reason to believe, you have reason to question the legitimacy of those places. You need to look in the lower right hand corner, because before you click, just by hovering on a link, it will show you where you are about to go. And so if this was, you know, some domain other than google.com, and I expected it to be a google.com domain address, like, you know, collaborate with your classmates, I mean, that totally should be going to Google. If it was going to, you know, like some site in Russia or something, I think that that would be questionable. So it helps you to identify places before you click a link and potentially do something damaging to your personal computer. Okay, the scroll bars up here on the right hand side, if there is content that's off the screen, and it in this case also scrolls left to right. So the content, because the window itself is larger than this tiny little recording window that I have open. So yeah, that's pretty much Firefox in a nutshell. Oh wait, let me show you one more thing, and that is where to find the version of Firefox. From, I've minimized everything, so I've got this little I've minimized everything in terms of like turning off all the stuff, right? But if I had it on, it would be under the help menu and about Firefox. Okay, and that'll show you that we've got version 22. I got to restart to update. The funny thing about this is, like, I recorded like Firefox 4.0 like 2 years ago. So within the last 2 years, they've gone through, from 4 to version 22. I swear, probably it says restart to update. If I restart this, it's probably going to be version 23, because they're like advancing version numbers every other month, it seems like these days. But how you get there is you go to the help about. And if you don't have the help because your menu bar is hidden, okay, it's under Firefox, help, and then about Firefox, right? The same end. We just had to go a little bit further, one more menu step, because we had the menu options hidden in here, right? So I will turn off the stuff and flip over to, let's take a look at Google Chrome. Okay, so right from the outset, you probably recognize that Google Chrome, flip back to Firefox, Google Chrome, Firefox, Google Chrome. There's a little bit more screen real estate in Google Chrome right off the bat, because they don't even have a button at the top here. And there's nothing. There is no menu by default in Google Chrome, and that's because they really want to maximize the viewing space. Basically everything in Google Chrome is hidden underneath of this 3-lined thingamajig over here. Everything is set underneath here. In Chrome, it's called an incognito window. Okay, and it is denoted by this little man wearing the shades up here in the corner. Okay, that's how you know that your information is going to be more secure. He won't remember any cookies from web pages that you go to. No preferences, no passwords will be stored as long as you're using this little incognito window. And that's just much better if you're using a shared computer or a computer in a library or anything like that. So Google Chrome also has the bookmarks. And I should also point out that if you right click on this, there is a little bit of customization that you can do, but you got to find, actually, wait a minute, no, there is not any from the blue area. You have to be inside, either one at this gray area. Let me see if I can find it. It's so crazy because they've minimized the interface so much that you really can't find a place to click inside here. And there really isn't. So what you see is what you get, but you can hide and show different things from the settings area of Chrome. And again, there is a million settings, so I am not even going to bother going through all these because there's just too many of them. Okay, but feel free to play with those different settings. And the same type of tab interface here. We have different tabs on Google Chrome. It likes to suggest all the different Google services. Okay, and if you sign in to Chrome, then if you sign into one of your Google accounts, then it will put your Gmail account here and your YouTube account here instead of just a generic link to Gmail and YouTube. Okay, close tabs by just clicking the X And gee, I wonder if I click this one, I think it will close the program because it will actually allow you to close the main one. Something that Chrome has right out in your face that most other web browsers are hiding these days is the refresh button. And I didn't even talk about it when we were in Firefox, which is because it's like way over here. The refresh button is something that will allow you to reload the current page that you're on. So if you suspect that a page has updated, or if there are changes that you know have been made to a web page, hint hint, like when you're doing your web projects and you know that they're not showing up, you can push the refresh. In most browsers, if you push the control key and hit refresh, it's a more powerful refresh, because what it will do is in this case, it forces open an entire new window and then reloads the page. So it's a more powerful refresh, because instead of just using when I hit this refresh button, like what just happened there? I mean, apparently nothing, right? I mean, it refreshed, I guess, right? You hit the refresh button, so you kind of, it's a combination between asking the server for new things and also bringing things in from cache. When you do the control refresh, though, it does open the new tab, but it also reloads the page. I mean, it brings everything out. There's no caching going on. So you got the reload button there, which I forgot to talk about. In Google Chrome, now flip back to Google Chrome, the refresh button is next to the back and forward buttons, which is the traditional place that the reload button has been in for a million years. Firefox has decided to put the refresh button in an unconventional place by sticking it on the other side of the address bar. And probably one of my biggest pet peeves with today's browsers is when you switch from Chrome to Firefox to IE, there is really interface differences that just frustrate the heck out of you, and really do cause you to go back to using one browser as your favorite, because you just can't find anything in the other browser anyway. So they used to have, it used to be standard. It was back, forward, refresh, home, right? It was a home button, and that was the whole standard. Now they've just like jumbled everything around so that you get used to using one and you go to use another one and you're like, wow, this one is terrible. And so because you can't find anything, and you go back to your preferred browser. So they've gotten away from standards and gotten into finding, my method of organization is the best. So anyway, in the Google Chrome, we have the HTTPS, which is denoted here by the green. This one turns green. If I type in http://google.com, which is a legitimate domain, they have it redirecting now. So I guess google.com has turned all of their searches secure by default. But if you access the website without a HTTPS, any website without an HTTPS, it will not show this lock, and it will not have the S. It will just be HTTP, and that's an unsecure protocol. I mean, you can have an HTTP website that's located anywhere, and so that HTTPS is a method that is used to secure the identity of a website that you're interacting with. Why doesn't every site use a certificate? Because certificates cost money, and they take time, and they require an annual renewal. So they're kind of a lot of work, and if you don't have a real reason to put your stuff on with a certificate, then you most likely just you just don't bother getting a certificate, right? I mean, we're gonna look at a lot of things today. We'll look at HTTP www.tcc.edu, right? There's no S on TCC edu. TCC does have plenty of secured web spaces, and we do have HTTPS HTTPS www.tcc.edu, but we don't use that for our public web page because it's a lot of maintenance and a lot of expense. So we just we protect only certain subdomains that need to, like our education foundation, like form stuff, form systems, things that take students and people's information and transmit it across the internet to our admission counselors or whatever. Those types of things are done through HTTPS because they need to be more secure rather than just our plain website at large. Okay, same type of system. This is the address, right? This is the address. It's also called the URL. It's also called the location. This is your current location. In Google Chrome, you've got this same type of star thing like we saw, and if we click it, it adds the bookmark, and you get to pick like where you want it to go, what you want it to be named, and you can further edit your bookmarks and that kind of thing, or you can just push done. If you want to unbookmark that, then you click the star again and you hit remove, and now the star is not lit up, meaning you have not already bookmarked this page. Right, I think I covered that pretty much everything in Chrome is put underneath of those 3 lines. Okay, and there is an About Google Chrome down here, which is version 28, and I mean it really is hysterical because not even a year ago they were on version 13. So now they're on Google 28. So now they're all just trying to outdo each other now. I think they'll release Google version 590 next week, because that's like the biggest number we've ever seen, right? It's just kind of ridiculous. Anyway, same type of thing here when I hover, right? When I hover on this link, this is the same link we looked at in the last time. You see down in the lower right-hand corner, it pops up, google.com, tells me where I'm going. These are the same basic functionalities that will transmit from one browser to the next. It's the same common behaviors that you will find in all web browsing space. We have or web browsing softwares. We have the same thing here. This one all the way around the outside is our this is the viewing window, and as you can see in this one there is no scroll bars. Right, when we were in Firefox had these scroll bars, and part of that is because different browsers will render pages differently, and this is the bane of web developers' existence, because every page you build looks 25 different ways, and the more advanced you get into web design, you will learn to love to hate the fact that every browser decides to make its own rules as far as how pages are displayed. This one shrank the font. This one, the font is much bigger, right? Look how big those letters are compared to how little, Chrome just basically kind of shrank the page down to make it fit in one screen. And these are all things that just drive developers crazy, and needless to say, it's just one of those features that everything will look different in every single browser. Let's see. All right, let's take a look at Internet Explorer. Okay, our last video of the day, or our last browser of the day, we are hitting Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer is showing Google as http www.google.com, which is, I think, very interesting. That both Chrome and Firefox automatically redirect to the HTTPS edition of Google, but by default Internet Explorer does not go directly to the HTTPS google.com. You have to type in the HTTPS portion manually if you want to get to the secure version of Google. An interesting aside over here, remember I mentioned that everything looking different in all the browsers was kind of the bane of web developers' existence. Well, there's a way that programmers, they can tell what browser you're using when you come to visit a web page. Now Google wants to take over Microsoft. I mean, at some point Google Google has transitioned into the company of companies. It's kind of the internet company, and it's really had a lot of battles with Microsoft, and it's really predicted to maybe surpass Microsoft in terms of software and just giganticness, right? So they pop something up on the screen. So if you're using the Internet Explorer and you come to Google, it's saying, hey, install Google Chrome. So it's forcing this down your throat. And, well, I mean, not forcing it down your throat, but it's popping it up there in your face, so that it's basically, they're targeting their competitor. And, they didn't pop it up in the Firefox window. They got no problem with you being there if you're in Firefox. But if you come to Google in Internet Explorer, they want you to install Google Chrome, because they're trying to take Microsoft's market position. And so they're going to make every effort that they can to make sure that people that are visiting their webpage using a competing browser get lots of messages to install their faster browser. Right off the bat, the same thing is true for the basic navigations. We have the back button and the forward button. Like I said, the most confusing button ever existed. The back button, however, is one that is universal. When you click and hold on the back button, it will show all of the places that you have been in your history, and you can even go back further. Okay, and that's if you click and hold on the button. It will show you the places you've been in previous steps. The address bar, which is here, denotes that we are using a secure website, and if we see the lock, it will show the security report that you can click to for additional information. You can verify this and all that kind of thing. And again, good for commerce, but unnecessary for things that don't involve commerce or safety and security. Right. So, all right. IE is customizable, right? If you right click on this, you can turn things off. We can turn off the menu bar. I've got Adobe Acrobat installed, and there's a PDF toolbar. That's ridiculous. So do I want to disable the add-on? Okay, sure. I just want to disable it because I've never had to make an Adobe PDF from in here. So there we go. And then you can show the tabs on a separate window, right? So that puts them up next to the address bar, and so you can really maximize your viewing space. Again, all customizable through right-clicking on the space that's around the tabs. Usually the space that's right in line with the tabs, not usually the space that's up top here. But if we right-click in IE at the top, it does allow us to access all of these different things, which is nuanced, because if you go into Google Chrome and right-click in that area, the only things that you can do are like move and resize the tab. This is where Microsoft is giving its own little power, because it's saying, okay, we're going to build our browser to work in our operating system to allow you to do anything from any space around here. But other programs will be limited to the exact little pixels space that people can right-click in to customize something. Remember, I was mentioning around Google Chrome where I was trying to find a little space in this gray area to click on, to right-click, to try to get my context menus to come up to let me customize. And I couldn't find them, because what they've done is they've made it so that you can't right-click in Google Chrome and do any customization. You need to be in Internet Explorer or Firefox. This is Microsoft going at Google Chrome by the throat and saying, okay, we're going to make it so that your program doesn't allow people to customize things by doing a right-click option. So that's Microsoft taking a stab at Google. Amazing how these things worked out. Did you guys know that the internet world is so political? All right, so everything is pretty similar to what we've already seen. There is the drop down here, which will show places that you've either recently been or places that are in your bookmarks. The security lock denotes that we are looking at the HTTPS edition of the Google. And when we click that, it will show the certificate. We can reload the page. Okay, and in that case, it did blink. We're pretty sure that we did, in fact, reload the page. But again, if you push the control button on your keyboard and hit the refresh button, it will force a complete reload of the page. So anything that was previously cached is not cached anymore. And it completely goes back out to the server and gets an entire new set of information. The home button is visible in mine. Okay, and these things may not be visible in your edition of Microsoft, depending on what edition you're using and how it's been customized. Browsers these days are so customizable that every one of you out there is going to have a different looking primary setup. Okay, underneath of these tools is how you would get to your options. You can do your internet options from here, and again, it's, you know, a million different things that you can customize inside there. The underneath the gear is, it should be, let's see, I'm going to find where we get to our private site, or a private viewing. Okay, so from the menu bar, you would go to Tools in Private Browsing, and that opens up a session that won't remember any of your cookies or passwords and things of that nature. It denotes in private up here in the side. Okay, if you don't have the menu bar enabled, you can get to it from the gear. It's underneath of Safety, and the menu flies off the screen, but it says in private browsing, and you can open the section, you can open the in private window, and that's good for computer labs and public spaces. Same behavior if we hover on a link. Look at the lower right hand corner, it shows us where we are about to go before we click the link, and this is definitely a huge benefit if you are for any reason questioning the legitimacy of a website. And quite frankly, it's a good practice to get in looking at that corner at where are you going to go, because if it's going to open an Adobe PDF document, for example, you might not want to open a PDF document because it can take a very long time to open Adobe PDFs. So maybe you just want to try to find the content somewhere else. So anyway, the information that's given down in that corner is invaluable, but it does disappear when you remove your mouse from the link. Yeah, and this one shows it, you know, on the left or the right, depending on whether there's space on the left or the right, or, you know, because in this case the link is on the bottom of the page. So if you get to, if the link were in the bottom left hand corner of the screen, it would show the address in the lower right. See, like this one here, it's showing it in the bottom right hand side because the bottom left hand side is occupied by the link itself. And so that pretty much wraps up our anatomy of 3 browsers.